We will give attendees a moment to trickle into the room. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the QEM Heroes webinar series. I'm Christine Wood, and I serve as the Assistant Program Director for the Heroes Fellows Program at QEM. For more than 30 years, QEM has been a national catalyst for STEM education transformation and research capacity building. Currently, the QEM network serves nearly 900 colleges and universities and reaches more than 8,000 individuals nationwide. This webinar is part of the HEROES initiative. The HEROES program brings together researchers with experience in the federal government to lend their expertise and support to the STEM research and education communities. Our fellows are here to provide tools and tips for navigating the funding landscape, developing STEM programs and partnerships, and improving talent retention in in-demand fields. We hope this series promotes engagement with our HEROES fellows and provides valuable resources to our participants. During the webinar, we invite you to use the Q&A tool to ask questions. We'll address those questions at the end of the presentation, and the webinar recordings and slides will be available in the QEM Resource Hub. By attending this webinar, you will be added to the QEM network and granted access to the Resource Hub. And I'm so proud to introduce our presenters today. Dr. Jehnae Linkins is a mechanical engineer, researcher, and founder of the nonprofit Don't Adjust Your Crown, where she advances equity in STEM through mentorship, design, and community engagement. She recently earned her PhD in mechanical engineering from the University of Maryland, where her research focused on equity-centered and Black-centered design and emerging technologies. Dr. Linkins works at the intersection of engineering, social impact, and inclusive research, helping institutions reimagine how STEM can better serve historically marginalized communities. And Shadei Laird is a naval systems safety engineer whose research background focused on safety analysis and risk mitigation for complex naval systems, with prior experience supporting ammunition and ship self-defense systems. She also has extensive experience in STEM education and supporting engineering workforce development programs, such as the SMART Scholarship for Service program. In addition, she has also coordinated the College of Southern Maryland's Workforce Development Program with the University of Maryland College Park and the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division. Lastly, she has also been a participant in the U.S. Army Sustainment Command's internship program for engineers. So without further ado, I will turn the floor over to our wonderful presenters today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine, for that introduction. So I am going to share the screen and get started. Okay, there we go. So let me know if you guys can see this. Are we good?
Good to go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So again, welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today we'll be talking about mentoring, but not just mentoring in the traditional sense, but more so mentoring focusing on culturally responsive mentoring and how it directly impacts the students and student persistence and success in STEM. And so with that, let's get started. So this presentation is interactive. Sorry. This presentation is interactive, so please scan the QR code to join us live in real time during the presentation, or you can go to mentee.com and use the code below if you are on your desktop. So I'll give you a minute to just get that going, and then we will continue. So we'll jump in. Okay, so why this matters. So student success in STEM is not just about access, but it's about persistence. So we've made lots of progress getting students into STEM, but access alone isn't enough. So the real challenge here is persistence and how we're figuring out who stays, who leaves, and why. So mentoring plays a critical role in that process. So there's a lot of STEM pathways that continue to experience high attrition rates. Underrepresented students face systemic and structural barriers, and mentoring is one of those strongest predictors of student retention. So that's what we're trying here to talk about. So the mentorship gap. So many mentoring models assume a neutral experience, but students are not entering these spaces as a one size fits all or from the same starting point. So when identity and context are being ignored, mentoring becomes less effective. So like again, their one size fits all approach will overlook identity and lived experiences. There's limited focus on belonging and psychological safety. So mentoring often prioritizes performance over development. So our bottom line here is that mentoring must evolve to meet the needs of today's students. So for our first poll today, Shadei, you can take that away, actually.
Okay. How would you define culturally responsive mentoring? So you can use the QR code to the right and scan, or join at menti.com and enter the code. And your answer will pop up on the screen and we can discuss. Giving people some time to put them in there. I see some action going on the right, but okay, they're coming in now. Mentoring that supports the whole student. Absolutely. That's the best and simplest way to put it. Listening and understanding the mentee's story. All right, this is good. Understanding who the students are. Absolutely. That was gonna make my next slide very easy for me. All right, those are all really, really okay. One more. Ongoing relationship building using cultural of the student. Exactly. Mentoring that is designed to meet the cultural needs of individuals. Okay, that's great. Mentoring that recognizes mentee as existing in the context of a cultural background and that their culture isn't a relevant part of the student, but a part of their whole person. All right now. I really like that one. Okay, so you guys are the expert on culturally responsive mentoring as well. That's awesome. Talk, taking into considerations the students' lived experiences. Yes. I think we got a couple more coming through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of 9. Okay. All right. Well, those are all great and really walk me into being there for the student. Absolutely. Okay. All right. I think there's one more that might be coming. Okay. All right. So, you guys already really defined, what culturally responsive mentoring is, taking into context that person's lived experience, their background, and to account in the best ways to support them so that they can continue to pursue their STEM degree. And one example that I would give is that I think sometimes now we all, as distinguished professionals, know that, getting your, first C, or what some engineering students might consider as a bad grade is not a reason to change your major, but you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, at how many times that both when I was an undergrad, I saw many students, change their entire major for one bad grade. And then again, as adjunct faculty, a bad test come back and, is this really for me, with one bad grade. And even, my own nephew said that he had a C at midterm. Should he stay at college to get caught up over Thanksgiving break? I said, no, you should not. You need to come home. So the culturally responsive mentoring is exactly what you guys said. And it really, to me, is just the key to persistence. Next slide. Okay. So, equity center mentoring framework. I'm also, since you guys are so expert already, I'm just going to give a shared example that I have on this where I was a adjunct faculty at the College of Southern Maryland, had only been faculty maybe about a year, and I was asked to be a part of the Men of Excellence summer program where they wanted uh, the minority students at the college at the time. They had like the lowest rate of retention, so we were putting together a special program, and they saw that an area of opportunity was getting a jump start or getting moving forward with the developmental math courses. So I planned all year for this program, in my opinion, thought of all the unthinkables, and the program was together. First week was going well, and then second week, I'm on my way to campus. I'm about 3 miles away, and I look to the left, and I see one of my students walking. Right, so we know that that is not an equal start when you've had to and I just saw him at the 3 mile point. So, who knows like how far they had already been walking. So awareness was the first part. Now that I'm aware, what type of action can I take? So my immediate thing was, we need to get some Uber gift cards. And then like the college, it's like, we don't do gift cards. And there was some things to go around, but being a rural area, the bus route doesn't help everyone. So took action, made connections for with the right people. And, for that one scenario, he was able to get, the Uber transportation for the remaining part of the program. And going forward, transportation, ever since that one experience is always something that like I bring up in like a rural area or for students for summer programs. So just being accountable, I did not think of that before the program, but like I said, now it's etched in my mind. So, there might be a situation that comes up with your mentee that you had not thought about, but the accountability means to, take that action, do the best you can with the resources at hand, and, commit to continuously improving from there. Okay. So why culturally responsive mentoring matters in the STEM workforce? Um, I guess the biggest reason is, the retention of our smart, bright scholars, engineers, all the people who really make the difference. And we know what it's like to have a person who's been there for 10 years and lose them and have to retrain. There's so much knowledge lost with that. And I could definitely say I always consider having a culturally responsive mentoring and maintaining the STEM workforce is a part of national security, right? We always want to make sure that we have the people working on it with the experience. And, if people are constantly leaving, then that means that, the people remaining, have less and less experience. And no matter how you try, just as an engineer, you can't substitute, 30 years or 10 years or 15 years of on the job experience, especially, when it comes to, weapon systems, et cetera. Okay, so this is just an example to highlight when we are the culturally responsive mentoring isn't happening, or that there aren't diverse ideas being brought to the table in the area of engineering design. There are definitely some things that can go wrong. Bottom line, decisions can unintentionally exclude and cause harm. So, in this next slide is an example of just what's being discussed on this slide. So, this is a real world example of safety design bias. If you study engineering at one point or taught it, I'm sure you came across this example. It's just a base example that they give to really talk about why it's important to have, I guess, a diverse school of thought and what can happen when everyone who needs to be considered is not always at the design table. In this case, they were referring specifically to the crash test models and how they were historically based on, male bodies. So like the biomechanics of, where woman's neck might be versus where like a man's, neck might be, or like the pelvic area. Um, those female specific biomechanics were not accurately considered. And what ended up happening is, at least believe about 45%, according to the National Highway Transportation Association, is that about 46% to 55%, women were having a higher fatality risk in, I guess, the crashes. And definitely by like the seat belt placement, as well as, from the impact of the airbag and the man's body being, a lot of times a little heavier or higher, being able to sustain it at different impact rates. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a quote that I wanted to insert that kind of gives a number of where we can be as far as female engineering leaving the engineering workforce by mid-career. And to give my own experience, the organizations and institutions I know that I thrived in, I did have a very supportive mentor. And one key thing I would like to say about my mentor is, outside of, the office discussions or whatever I brought to her, she always took action to make sure that I was supported. She used her, senior level leverage to make sure I was supported. If I had an idea, walking me through the correct people of the foundation to present it to. And I stayed in the places that I left. Sometimes I do wonder if I had maybe a more supportive, mentor to help me navigate that situation, if I might have stayed a little bit longer. So just um, I think 40% is so high, but next slide, please. Okay. Did you want me to read this one today?
Yeah.
All right. What other biases have you come across in mentor-mentee relationships? So I think I kind of spoke about, the male to female, but there are different type ones. I won't give them all away. So hopefully, okay. Yes, absolutely. That is a great one. Biases against people who choose to start families during their postdocs or in their early career stages. That is a great one. Okay, I see some more responses are loading. I'm gonna give it some time. Race biases, absolutely. Mm. And accessibility biases. These are good. Transition from mentor to friend and or colleague is often difficult. Yes. Mental health. Oh, that's a good one. Low academic inability, expectations of success, individuals from certain backgrounds. Mm, that's good. Underestimate estimation of intelligence capacity. Ooh, based on biases. Okay. Biases based on factors you have already addressed, how the underrepresentation of women and people of color may impact people from these identity groups when entering STEM. Absolutely. Yes, assumptions that women are more focused on social support and not technical or research focused. Ooh. Mansplaining and derogatory approaches. I know a little something about that. Financial background biases, those who've had the resources and the means to get ahead and gain opportunities versus those that did not have the means and had to go through more hurdles to get to the same level. Absolutely. Yeah, these are all good. I think that's it.
No, there's supposed to be 4 more coming through.
Okay.
Supposedly. And just maybe a lag.
Yeah.
So I think you have plenty of time if we want to wait on those.
Yeah, we can come back. We're going to be actually talking about this in the next couple slides, so we'll come
Okay.
back. Awesome, thank you. All right, so now we have another one. Surprise. All right.
Those fingers moving.
Yeah. And this one's a perfect yes or no or maybe. So we should get these ones quick. Whenever it loads up. Give it a second. Yeah. It's deciding to do its own thing today. Which is okay. Well, the question is, and you can also just put their answers in the chat. The question is asking us, have you had unrealistic expectations put on you as a mentee, in your experience? Oh, it's popping up. There we go. So was there a time you felt like there were unrealistic expectations put on you as a mentee? We got a maybe so. Maybe so. Okay. Couple maybe so's. And maybe I'll even go as far as to say maybe they were unrealistic expectations that you didn't know that they were until like maybe later on down the line. Like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. I have one person that says no. No one feels like they have unrealistic expectations put on them. Okay, we got one yes. Great. Oh, we'll keep going here. So majority, so some people say maybe so, possibly one person says no. We got two yeses. And so how can we, what are some ways that we can mitigate this or help to work through these type of expectations? So 3 people said no. Okay, we got some more responses coming in. Okay, so here's some strategies that we can use to so we're not, putting unrealistic expectations, and so we're being supportive to our students. So one thing is trust. So trust is that foundation that when students feel seen and understood, they're more likely to engage, to persist, and maybe even it succeed ultimately, right? So just learning who your students are beyond academics, validate lived experiences, and create safe and supportive environments. One thing I will say about one of my mentors who I actually so communicate with today, she knows I like shoes. I love shoes. So anytime she saw like, a crazy funky pair of shoes, she'll send it to me like, oh, this might be something you might wear or whatever the case may be. But like she learned who I was, learned the things I liked. She knows I like Harry Potter, so she'll send me a little Harry Potter meme, like just things like that. So just learning. And so that, got me comfortable. And I feel like I can go to her with, anything at this point, because she created that safe and supportive environment for me. What else we have? Strategy number 2 is moving from advising to advocacy. So connecting students to opportunities, recommending and sponsoring students. So maybe you have some networks within like other agencies or other universities or whatever. Maybe they have their internship program. Like, oh, I have one of my students. She might be a good fit for this. And helping navigate institutional barriers. I think Shadei said earlier that one of her previous mentors was also a part of, senior leadership. And so helping able to navigate those type of things. Because mentoring is not is not passive. So it's not just giving advice. It's actively opening doors and making sure that students like feel that they have like a belonging and they're able to move forward. So just advocating for those students. Strategy number 3 is supporting identity and career development. So helping students see themselves in STEM, discussing different career pathways early and encouraging ownership of that journey. So students need to see themselves in the future. They need to see themselves in STEM. They need to see themselves 5, 10, 15 years from now. And so mentoring plays a key role in that, in helping them build that vision. So whether that be like, a mentoring mind map, figure out who the students can, have in their social circle, the professional circle, the personal circle, whatever that looks like, or even going old school, getting a science back, we're doing a vision board. I love doing that. And so, maybe just I think I'm a visual learner. So that, for visual, it was always perfect for me to be able to see where I'm going if it's on paper, if it's tangible, so I can see it and I, put it on my wall at home and things like that. Um, and lastly, strategy number 4 is just normalizing, like we already know challenges. Challenges are going to be a big part of the journey. Students need to know that they will experience some type of challenge. It's normal, but they can push through it, and that you'll be there to support them. So just normalizing challenges and building resistance within your students. Addressing imposter syndrome. I know that a lot of my graduate school journey and things like that, I always felt like, I wasn't good enough. And my cohort was 289 of us, and I was the only Black woman. So just off of that, I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be here. I don't know if I belong here and things like that. And so just making sure that you're addressing that and and reassuring and reinforcing to your student that you do belong. You are here for a reason. And then sharing real experiences and setbacks, like, making sure that the student knows that, you're human too, like you're normal too. Like, at one point I was on academic probation. Okay, cool. Like, sharing that with your students, like, oh, it's not the end of the world. Like Shadei said, if you get a bad grade, a C or whatever, it's not the end of the world. Like things happen, but there's a way. If seeking support and you're helping, I'm here, as the mentor. I can help you through that and we can navigate together. And lastly, just reinforcing growth and persistence, like, having them grow professionally, personally, through this experience and just having them persist on in STEM. And our lesson. So how can we, oh, we have some, okay. So how can we use these strategies in practice? The next question probably popped up. Okay, yeah, how can we use these strategies in practice? Whenever that decides to load back up again. We had a few answers up already. There we go. How can we use these strategies in practice? Give it a minute or two for people to respond. Create a safe and supportive environment for students or mentees to disclose and insofar as they are comfortable, what identity or social factors may be impacting them, and be proactive to create these spaces. Okay, great. Be sure to understand the mentees' needs and not just make assumptions, right? Be intentional with creating one-on-one conversations and comfortable environments, being vulnerable with the mentee and sharing your challenges and success, making sure that you know what form of communication works best for the mentee. That's a great one. Check in with them. I'm assuming that's it. Check in with the students. Yes. Yeah. So knowing, I think that the communication factor is a good one. So some students are not able to, maybe they're better at like journaling or, sending emails, whatever that looks like, but maybe, whatever, use their communication style as the strength, to get through, to be able to support the student in that way. So that was a great one. I love that.
Yeah, Jehnae, let me piggyback on that one. When I was at Dahlgren, they said that the command spent a lot of money to implement, I guess, a dual system that included sending a text message for the offer letter because they were hiring so many like university students and they just were not opening, the
Emails.
emails. So I found that just to be very interesting. So yeah, knowing how they communicate, what works best is really a good one, especially when you have the intergenerational relationships.
Great. Thank you for that. And honestly, I mean, share them a TikTok video if that's what you need to do. Sure, I saw this TikTok video that reminded me of you. What do you think about this? I don't know. Like Shadei said, like getting down to their level. That's what we need to do to support our students, and maybe we can figure what that looks like.
Mhm.
Um, so thank you all for those responses. So just continuing on. My slide just have to change. Okay, too many slides. Everything's moving slow. Okay. Technology is something. It wants to do what it wants to do. There we go. What this looks like in practice. So turning mentoring into action. So this is where everything becomes real. Everything that we've been talking about becomes tangible. There's small intentional actions that can significantly shift a student's experience in STEM, in college and things like that. So regular check-ins beyond academia, which we talked about before in the previous slide, even structured goal setting and conversation. So maybe not necessarily a academic goal, a personal goal, professional goal, whatever that looks like. And then connecting students to research and funding opportunities. So like I said before, maybe you have some colleagues that are at FDA or NASA, whatever that looks like, and do an e-introduction, connect them on LinkedIn to get your students in that space to talk to these people, to talk to your colleagues, talk to your network, to help better support them, not just for the now, but like for the future as well. So our call to action here today is that you don't have to change everything overnight, right? This is not going to happen overnight. We know it's a journey, it's a transition, whatever, but you need to start somewhere and just be intentional about wherever it is that you're going to start. So again, start where you are, act with intention, identify one strategy to implement. We provided a couple different ones today, and even we had people submit stuff in the poll. So identify a strategy that you can implement. Reflect on your current mentoring practices and see where maybe things can shift, things can adjust. And then lastly, commit to supporting students holistically. Because at the end of the day, you never know what your student is going through. Your student, may have a family at home. They're a brother, they're a sister, they're a mom, they're a dad, whatever that looks like. They're aunt, an uncle. They have 3 jobs. They have to do their things at night. They're not a morning person. Like, support your student holistically. Figure out who they are and how you're able to support them to get them through this journey and then continuing on. And try.
Okay. So in putting together this presentation, I sought out to find some opportunities for funding that specializes in mentoring. So I found this opportunity with the William T. Grant Foundation. Not an expert on it, but feel free to use the QR code to check out the website. But I do want to talk a little bit about the opportunity and what it is. And as Jehnae says, I went old school. And she said old school division board. I think she was talking about me because that's how I used to do was division board. But anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about this opportunity. And if it is of interest for you, then perhaps you could pursue it. This opportunity is specifically for the mentor to I guess, receive funding and be able to support a doctoral student or a postdoctoral fellow. Now, when they say this is grant is by invitation only, they have several other opportunities to fund on their website. So I think once you become a part of receiving a grant, then that makes you eligible for this additional funding to, work with a junior researcher from the website says person of color. I put underrepresented. So underrepresented. So once if you get the award and then you want to share your research with a junior faculty or researcher, then you can apply for this to basically help, you know, your mentee come along in your area of expertise. And they said that basically they want to get a much stronger understanding of what issues are facing the junior colleagues and also want to give training to those who are providing mentoring on a regular basis. So there, I've also like included the website if you want more information for some of the opportunities with this organization.
And with that, we just want to say thank you all for joining in the mentor our workshop today, excuse me, webinar today. I've let too many things in my head. Our webinar today, and you can contact us and connect with us via email, our QEM events page to see what's upcoming next, our Heroes webpage, and also webinar feedback form. And so now we'll take some questions, and we also have a few discussion questions to get the conversation going if we would like. So thank you all for that, for your time today.
And we are open for questions. Please feel free to input your questions in the Q&A tool or raise your hand to be taken off mute. You can also use the chat.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have a shared story? I can see from the responses you guys know so much about this topic already, but did anybody have something just in general they wanted to share? Oh, I see a hand up.
Dr. Frances Carter Johnson.
Yes.
Great presentation, guys, and thank you for doing this. I guess sometimes mentoring relationships are not formal. Sometimes they're kind of informal relationships, and then some of them are more formal, right? You're in a mentoring program, you have definite objectives, and I think these strategies I think should be applied across the board. But what do you say to people when they say, well, my mentoring relationship is not as formal? Are there some that you should start with? Or just some that you should implement all the time, even when it's not a very formal mentoring relationship, versus some that you would implement, I guess, more in depth when it's a more formal relationship? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think also even to your point, just about the formal and informal relationships, like I have like mentors for different aspects of like my career and things like that. So I had an academic, mentor. I have, I do beauty pageants, so I have a mentor that's a past beauty queen. So like I feel like that's also a thing, like, with different in different aspects of your life, having that different mentorship, what that looks like. But I feel like even in general, like trust is like one that can be used across the board, right? Just feeling as though your mentee feels like they're able to trust you in some sort of capacity, whether that be like, just trusting with confidence with like information, or like something they're telling you about, like maybe like you're having an issue with a professor. Like I feel like trust is like, at the end of the day, trust, respect is the bottom line that we can do. Right. I don't know. I feel like the type of person I am, I can use all these across the board. It doesn't matter what type of relationship it is for me. So that's why it's kind of hard for me to answer the question. But I understand what you're saying. So Shadei, do you have anything that you could probably?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think it's up, to those two individuals on how they will engage. Like you said, a mentor relationship can really impact someone personally, and it might stay professional. I think it's just, but I do think, as Jehnae said, getting to know the person, the lady that was mentoring me, she had three sons, and like every weekend we come back, she was just talking about, her son's wrestling match. So I just tried to, be current with what's going on with that, just in that specific relationship. And that was kind of the extent of it. So like I said, I think it depends on the individual. But like I said, knowing that in an academic setting or workplace setting, I think your mentor should be like the first person that you call when you have something and you need credible advice. And when I say first person you want to call, is because that should be a person who you know will help you navigate it, and if they need to, go to bat so that the issue can become resolved, instead of the mentee feeling like, I cannot navigate this place and all I really can think about now is leaving. So that's where I think the persistence comes and is, like said, a mentor who will do those things, I think is definitely, the start. I mean, I've had mentees that, I mean, a mentor that, was younger than me, but when it came to, like, the weapons, they were training me. So it doesn't necessarily even have to go with what we always think, a person super similar. You might be surprised at, who your best mentor or mentee might be. And also, one thing I didn't say during the presentation is that it's just a two-way street. I've my mentor always says that she's learned so much from me, and also, when I work with I guess students, I learn a lot from them. So as long as it's, trust and the basis, and it's a two-way street, I think, those two individuals can determine, just how far or how much they want to share.
We have a question in the Q&A tool from Lena Arnold. With regard to NSF proposals, where a mentoring plan is asked for, are you able to provide feedback on what should be part of that written plan?
So I will say I am DoD specific. NSF is not necessarily my specific wheelhouse, but I know there's a few other heroes, unless Shadei knows, and a few other heroes that are NSF specific that may have a little bit more information regarding that. So I don't want to provide wrong information because I'm DoD specific.
I would say same. Yeah, my background, my wheelhouse is more uh Department of Navy. So but I know we do have heroes in that area. So if they're on here, feel free to jump
Yeah,
in.
feel free to jump in.
In lieu of other heroes coming on, their NSF is very specific in their mentoring plan, and they have guidelines posted on the website. And while Dr. Carter Johnson is responding, I'll try to pull up that link.
I think it would be I think this is a great opportunity, Lena, to also reach out to the program officer or the program to which you're responding. I agree. I don't have the link. Thank you, Jennifer, for looking up the link, but they are very specific and it might vary from program to program. So I would take this as an opportunity to reach out to that program, to that division or directorate, and really maybe try to schedule a 15 or 30-minute conversation about that.
Thank you, Dr. Carter Johnson. Appreciate that.
And we have a raised hand from Dr. Tori Rulak Smith. You are allowed to come off mute.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure before I started talking. I was just going to reiterate what Francis mentioned in terms of consulting with the program, because there are programs that have different requirements regarding the mentoring plan. Generally, what you want to include would be things like the activities that they are going to be engaging in and how you as a mentor are going to support their professional development. I don't know that mentoring plans often lack the activities as much as they might lack what the mentor is going to be doing to help build the mentee's professional preparation. So that's broadly what to include. To Tarina's point, there is a list in the NSF PAPG, the Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide, but I do want to reiterate again, every program may have some subtle nuances that you would definitely want to address. So for example, the Historically Black Colleges and Universities undergraduate program now requires undergraduate student mentoring plans. And that may not be true for all programs, but because of their strong emphasis on improving STEM education at an undergraduate level, they require undergraduate mentoring plans in addition to what graduate or postdoc plans you might be adding. So please do check with each individual program for those requirements. And then broadly, just don't forget to include not just the activities they'll be taking part in for the research study, but also the kinds of publishings and going to conferences or the one-on-one sessions or whatever it is that you as mentor are going to provide them with should also be included there. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, and I've dropped two links in. There's a brand new mentoring guidelines for graduates. Well, I say brand new as of April 2024 that I dropped in the chat, and then the general NSF mentoring plan guidelines. And then once again, as everyone has said, make sure you check the RFP because there may be specific requirements within those as well. And then also in the chat, Carrie Hall, who is one of our heroes, has agreed to be available to look at mentoring plans for NSF proposals. So, Carrie, if you can drop your email too in the chat. You can also find our email on the NSF, on the QEM website heroes page. But if Carrie, if you would feel comfortable dropping your QEM email, there you go. So anyone who would like her to review that, you have her direct email access.
So a lot of this conversation is focused on, how to cultivate mentoring practices that support the whole student. Um, we know that some mentors, we know that some PIs or lab leaders don't have a vested interest in mentoring. It's never been part of their wheelhouse or practice space. How do we work together to more or less convince people that these mentoring practices are essential for persistence and continued engagement and the success of your graduate students or your postdocs or whoever you're mentoring?
Mm.
That for the everybody or for me and Jehnae?
I would open that to the floor. I think that there's an initiative at the University of Wisconsin called SIMMER, and they run a program called Culturally Aware Mentoring, which trains faculty members in culturally aware mentoring practices. I think getting a critical mass of people who are vested in that process and in applying the skill sets of culturally aware mentoring is really important. I think I wanted to underscore the importance of all of us acting as liaisons to other mentors and other practitioners in this space to encourage mentorship practices and humbling oneself to being trained or to learning about what it means to be a mentor who practices culturally aware mentoring.
Chris, do you have the link or something of that nature to drop in the chat?
I do. And there's a handy presentation and some data too.
Okay.
And also, Christine, I think you hit it on the head, like, having humbling people, like being humbling themselves and understanding, like, where we are today. I mean, obviously, you know, from my personal experience, I've had some mentors who are like, you know,
I think you froze, Jehnae.
older. Engineering is very, oh, did I? Did I freeze? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I'm okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So what I was saying is that engineering is a very like rigid um, focus, right? And so one of the issues that I've had predominantly with white male like mentors in engineering is that they're used to this 1+1 = 2 methodology. Like that's it. Like we don't care about anything else but that. And so I feel like Christine said, that humbling of, being able to, take a step back from yourself and be like, maybe I should look into this. Maybe I, may need to do this. And I personally feel like it should be a requirement to be like a professor, like to go through some type of responsive mentoring training, because my first advisor at University of Delaware told me the only reason why I was here is because I was Black. And I said, that's crazy. Like, okay, like, what does that even mean? And then
They
he even
said
went
that to you?
yeah, he said it to me to my face in front of a lab meeting at 8 a.m. In the lab
Wow.
meeting. And then he went as far as to say, like, oh, you're probably on a scholarship or like welfare. Like this is whole thing. And I was just sitting there like, oh my God, like this is crazy.
Did you
And of
say
course, obviously,
welfare?
I did, because that's what this man said to me. And I was like, this is crazy. So if you know me, then I don't anyway. So he got, we had a conversation. very professionally, and I let him know that, whatever. But like, yeah, so I feel like it's a requirement. It should be like a requirement for like professors to like have some sort of like mentorship training, because saying that to like a student, and you caught me on a good day, because if it was another day, I don't know what could have happened, what could have been said to you. So it's just it's a it's a different time of day here now, and in the future of maybe making that a requirement, and humbling ourselves. So that's all I had to say.
I mean, I could say that I've had, or at least I know about some very similar experience. And I think, Christine, that's a really great question that you pose. I think, today we were, I guess, what do you call it, like preaching to the choir, and this group knows all about it in and out, but perhaps the person who may need it the most may not think that they need it, right? So, um, where do we go from there? I was really pleased. Like on a coffee chat, I think it was Chris Atchison and Emily Davis were, whatever the topic was, they were saying that a lot of changes need to be made from the inside out, right? And I think, being aware, um, is the first step, and then being able to take action. But yeah, I had a very similar experience where one of my really good friends, I met them at a Walmart corporate internship in Bentonville, Arkansas, and we were talking one day, and she was just saying something similar, that she went to a professor with questions, and the professor, same thing, older white man was like, hey, if you have this many questions, you need to change your major. And she did. Very, um, smart girl. And my experience, very different, at my HBCU. My professor suite, they had like a suite, so they had their offices and they had desks out there. I'm not saying the desks were specifically for us, but we made use of them, and like I remember like telling my mom one time, she was asking me about something that happened on campus. I said, Mom, if it did not happen in engineering building, this is I don't know about it, because just spending my time there, and my professor's always like helping me, because I'm like, you thought she had questions. I got a lot of questions too. So, yeah, I think that would probably be the next take is, getting this information to, the people who probably need it more, way more than the group that, we spoke with today. So that's just my take.
Well, I think with all these stories, there's a lot of additional training just besides mentorship training that might need to happen with some of these people. Because if you're telling the student they're asking too much questions, maybe you don't need to be teaching, because that's what you're there for, is to answer their questions. So that's a whole nother level. But I have a very similar thing too to both of your stories. I personally experienced. I was in grad school. Um, the teacher had done the instruction and said, "Hey, these are some practice questions you might want to go through to see if you're comfortable with the information." So I did. I went and answered the questions, went through the questions and answered them. Went to the office hours and said, "I've done the exercise questions. Would you please look over them to see if I'm on the right track?" Without even looking at the paper, the gentleman said to me, "Some of my Spanish students haven't been able to answer these questions, so you may need to go back and look again."
Whoop.
And I'm like, Okay. And immediately went and dropped the course because I knew that was not going to go well. So, and that's another thing that, if I had had a mentor at that time, because I was a first semester graduate student, or second semester graduate student at the institution I was at the time, and I hadn't, acquired a mentor for at that point. And so, if I had had a mentor in that case, I probably wouldn't have necessarily run straight to drop the course, but I would have gone to the mentor and said, "Hey, this is what happened. What should I do?" And maybe that mentor could have intervened or whatever. So, yeah.
And I think even another thing, bringing that up, Shadei talked about the HBCUs, and so I went to HBCU and a PWI, and this is probably another webinar, maybe another conversation for another, like just the differences in levels of support that I felt like I had at my HBCU versus the PWI I went to. And so then, like, obviously the HBCU, I'll cut it short. HBCU, very family oriented, close knit, able to go to the professor, like, whatever the case may be. At the PWI, I had to seek out the the one Black faculty in the engineering department and like, talk to them, and then, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. I'm gonna just leave it there. So that was a whole situation too. And so like even going as far as that, so that is a conversation, probably another webinar, HBCU support versus
Another webinar,
PWI.
another day.
Another day. But just saying that, like, different levels of support, and being able to like go sit into your professor, your professors, your mentors office or whatever. Like at my HBCU, like I knew when that car pulled up, I was sitting right at his desk. Like he kept his office open because I was like, I have questions, I need answers, I need to work through these things. But at the PWI, it's like, oh, schedule an appointment, do this. Like it was like I'm jumping through hoops to try to get to meet with just to answer one question. And so just there, I'll leave that there. But yeah.
We have a comment from Dr. April Erickson in the chat. This is, I think, very important. It's important to educate mentees as to what a good mentor characteristics are. Graduates carry those notions into the workplace. We have very similar issues with mentoring in industry.
Very good point, April. Very good point. Because especially if you're a first generation student, you don't know who to, you just grab, if somebody says something nice to you, you grab onto them. They may not be the best person to be your mentee. So you have a very good point. It's a good thing to have a checklist of things you ought to look for in a mentee, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
And
the different types of mentees, as Jehnae pointed out, you have different mentees for different things. And so, yeah. But, hopefully there's a generic form of a list that can be developed as well, or maybe already be developed.
I muted myself, and we only have a couple minutes, but Johanna Massey in the chat has a comment or a question. Is there a mentorship paradigm or framework you can base a research study on? Good question. And Dr. Erickson responds with, NASM has produced guidelines and reports on mentoring that could be helpful. And I am putting one study from the National Academies in here as Dr. Erickson reference. From the Q&A, hello, I have a great suggestion and wonder if it's been suggested about the thought processing. If you want to add some more information about what your suggestion is, come off mute or add that in the chat, that would be appreciated. And Rodney Coley has raised their hand. And Rodney Coley, please come off mute.
Okay, very good. Hello.
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 Okay. How you guys doing? Name's Brother Rod Coley. I'm a veteran, Navy veteran. I'm retired robotic engineer, and my 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 thought is, and I teach neuroeducation now to the youth. And one of the things that I've went through as well, when we start to understanding African American in robotic engineering, and how when you walked into the room, you already knew the thought processing. So now that's what I'm suggesting. I was hearing what both of you young ladies went through. So now that was one of my white papers is on. When you walk into a room, the preconceived thought processes of Caucasian people, and how, of course, of what they were taught in their formative years of education, in the Milan sheath and all the rest of that. So anyway, so with that being said, what can we do something differently now? So in neuroeducation, that needs, in my opinion, that needs to be part of a curriculum where we understand what was going on in the other brain. So now with that being said, so now we have a new conclusion of what can we do something new now. Now, of course, now we get into, we could do cognitive deconstruction now because we see the benefits of doing it. And now, of course, now when we do cognitive reconstruction, showing um, how the other human brain was operating, but at that same time, now we have a new story to tell us ourselves that won't produce the biochemistry of cortisol and that feeling. So now again, now we have a new narrative that produces a dopamine, now re-releasing the prefrontal cortex to be creative, in harmony, homeostasis, and the rest of that. So that's just me understanding, again, reflecting on my own personal journeys of finally understanding they never seen a black man that could do robotic engineering. So they did not have this in their neural pathway. So now, of course, now their amygdala, I don't know about this, so I'm going to be fearful. XYZ. But anyway, just so I wanted to hear y'all guys' thought on that when we talk about pain points, current condition, and what can we do something different now. And again, this neuroeducation of what's going on, and again, subconscious biochemistries, XYZ, I think is a new approach. And again, anyway, that's what I'm doing. And as a veteran, this is something that's helped me. And of course, this all came from my CBT training. Again, that y'all guys helped me with as well. Other PhDs that work with us. So it's just my opportunity to give back, or what's been going on in my head. And this was part of what I was hoping for when I signed up for this.
So I'm gonna suggest
Hmm.
this because of our time factor.
Yeah.
Um, if you could drop your information directly to, I don't know if you have the access to drop it directly to host and panelists, do they have options to do that? Or unless you feel comfortable dropping your name and information
Oh
in the
yeah, I can
chat.
in the
And
chat.
what we'll
Uh,
do is we'll reach back out to you, maybe Dr. Laird and Dr. Linkins, and
okay.
have a group of us, and we can have a discussion
Oh,
about
that'll.
maybe
Okay.
potential research and or future webinar topics and so on and so forth. And I hate to do that to you, but
Oh
we
no,
are
no, that's good.
time.
That's no. This is this is positive information we can multiply with, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Nothing is bad. Yeah.
And
So I'll put
if
my Gmail or something like that.
right, your full name and your Gmail would be great.
Okay.
And whoever's running the PowerPoint, if you could pop your last slide up with your email and stuff in it so he can see that and he can
Okay.
copy that down as well and we can get some communication going.
Great. Yeah, that's the good point.
So Christine, I'm gonna turn it over to you to shut it down.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful webinar full of discussion. I really love the use of the Mentee and the interactive tools. And I think everybody comes from a place of, in many cases, personal experiences with mentorship. And I think that was incredibly valuable here today. And I hope this is a conversation we can continue. And you'll see in the chat that there are a number of resources that folks have added, research articles, reports, guidelines. And I encourage you to click on those before we depart today. But in lieu of more conversation, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Linkins and Shadei for a really engaging and wonderful presentation. We hope that you've enjoyed this and that you'll come to future webinars. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.
And spread the word to all of your colleagues, friends, associates, and family.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.